business cards from different members of the chamber, so if you want to go through it and see somebody's card that you might want to network with, you can come up and see the book. It'll be back on the back table at the end of the presentation. Okay, today our presentation is by Rachel Gruber. Rachel is the manager of regional affairs within government affairs at the Division of Denver International Airport. Rachel is responsible for developing and implementing strategic outreach and communications and plans to advocate and gain support for DIA and Denver policies and priorities. I'm going to let Rachel tell you more about Rachel. So without further ado, Rachel Gruber.
Wonderful, happy afternoon, everybody. It is such a pleasure, and thank you for everybody's introduction. It's really helpful to better understand, who's in the audience, so that I can kind of tailor even some of the information that I'm sharing to be specific to you. So as Renee mentioned, my name is Rachel Gruber. I am the manager of regional affairs at the airport within the government affairs team. So handling a lot of our strategic partnerships and relationships with all of our surrounding jurisdictions, which are really critical when it comes to the airport, because a lot of what we do impacts our neighbors when it comes to economic development, workforce opportunities, transportation, land use, interconnectivity for our highways and roadways, as Tower Road, Pena Boulevard, all of them are critical for our success. So really excited to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity. So I'm going to start out by discussing the airport just a little bit at a high level. So, the pandemic really kind of shook up the way that things were handling at the airport. We were pretty strong in 2019. We served 69 million passengers. And then we saw a really significant, about a 50% decline in passenger traffic because of COVID, with about 33.7 million passengers. We were one of the fastest rebounding airports just because of our geographical location. So a lot of our sister airports, LaGuardia, all of LAX, they did not have as strong of a rebound because they relied so heavily on international traffic. So we don't have as significant. We absolutely have international travel, but we aren't as reliant on international travel as those coastal airports. So we were able, through our domestic network, we're able to bring back passengers and really get our airport kind of back on the track to where it was for us to be able to rebound from COVID. 2021, you can see we had about 58 million passengers that we served at the airports. And then in 2022, we actually changed our projection just a few weeks ago. So this is an update slide, but we're projecting about 70 million. So we are going to be very similar to what we saw in 2017, or 2019, I'm sorry. And it is important when we talk about all of our traffic demand, how critical it is for our infrastructure. So the airport was built in 1995 and only had a capacity of 50 million passengers. So even in 2019, when we were talking about these numbers, we were already busting at the seams when it came to the number of passengers that we're able to serve. So that's why it's critical, and I'll go through all of this, but it's critical for us to really have a comprehensive look when we're talking about growing the airport, making sure that we're providing world-class customer service, safety, security, all of those components are top of mind as we continue to grow. So right now we have 24 different airlines that we serve. United is our largest, and we're actually very unique in the way that we have 3 major hubs. So United, Frontier, and Southwest, we are all hubs too, which for us who are travelers, really is great because it's very competitive when it comes to ticket pricing. So other airports that have one sole hub typically does see higher enplanements and higher ticket prices for regional and international traffic. So it's very unique for an airport to have 3 hubs, 3 large hubs that dominate over 70% of our market at the airport, be here with hangars, having maintenance capabilities at the airport. We serve over 210 nonstop destinations, over 25 international destinations, and then 14 different countries. And of course, that's something we're always looking to explore, even if they're local, right? We're looking at Colorado Springs, we're looking at all the way to Africa, we're looking everywhere to be able to add some interconnectivity for the airport and what we serve. We are the largest economic driver for the state of Colorado. So we contribute $33 billion annually to the economy, and we do that by employing over 34,000 employees which is also the largest employer in the state of Colorado, and serving about 1,200 different companies. And I'll talk on the companies a little bit later, but it's an opportunity. One of our biggest focus is to integrate more small business local communities into the airport. And so I'll talk about that a little bit more when it comes to our equity component. So Vision 100, and I'll talk about it. Vision 100 is our goal to get us to 100 million passengers. And as I noted before, this year we're anticipating to hit about 70. So 30 million, while it does seem a lot, it comes fast. So we're projecting to hit 100 million passengers within the next 8 to 10 years. And as you can see, even since the inception of the airport, which is cut off a little bit on this, we've had a pretty steady growth pattern, except for COVID, which all airports across the world experience. So we're, through that projection, we're going to even look out to 2040 to hit 121. So to put that into context, right now the airport is the third busiest airport in the world. We were the third busiest airport at the end of 2021, and we continue to hold that into 2022, which is really remarkable when you're talking about an airport that's only less than 30 years old. So Atlanta is the #1 busiest airport, and this year they served 120 million passengers. So as you're talking about our projection for 120 within the next 20 years, it's pretty incredible to see how that projection is going to impact the airport. So Vision 100, we welcomed the new CEO, Phil Washington, and his brilliant idea to come in is Vision 100, to get us to 100 million passengers. And to do that, it integrates different principles and then integrates 4 different pillars of a strategic plan for us to be able to reach that. So for our pillars, powering our people, growing our infrastructure, maintaining what we have, and then expanding our global connections. I'll go into these in depth as we go through, but it's really critical for us to kind of look at the airport from a holistic view, right? It's, of course, people, workforce, we've all experienced it. It's very difficult to retain, it's very difficult to hire. So how can we make sure that we're creating workforce pipelines and retaining the folks that we already have? Growing our infrastructure. To be able to accommodate our new passengers, we're gonna have to grow. Maintaining what we have. While it's not as exciting as a brand new gate or a brand new terminal or a brand new whatever it might be, it's still critical for us to be able to have those conveyances operational and have our facility at a world class. And then expanding our global connections. What airport doesn't want to continue to grow to expand our global connections? So as we look at it, we also look at sustainability and resiliency, equity, diversity and inclusion, stakeholder and continuous feedback, which is these types of things to say, hey, what are we doing well, what are we not doing well, and how can we improve, and what can we work on together? So that's a really critical part of what we're looking on. And then enhancing the customer experience. When guests come or when we fly out of Denver International Airport, we want everybody to say, wow, this is really a world-class facility. So to start, pillar #1, powering our people. So some of you may know, but we are embarking on a brand new Center of Equity and Excellence in Aviation Center. It's about 80,000 square feet. That's going to be right on level 4, underneath the Westin Hotel. It's like the Westin and then the terminal and then the plaza space. So it'll be right under there. It's vacant space right now that during COVID we used as vaccine clinics. We're using it right now for like flu and booster shots, but that whole space is going to be completely redesigned to be a center and a hub for aviation talent and training. So what we're looking at is, so what it's really designed is for Colorado, for Denver, to be the national hub when it comes to training, workforce, research, innovation. It's a first of its kind. There are other, you'll hear like Center of Excellences, COEs, kind of on a federal level. There was one in Boulder, but unfortunately it was unsuccessful. Ours is very different from that. Ours is very focused on aviation, very focused on different components. So you could look at, anywhere from the mechanics of an aircraft to sustainable aviation fuel to talent research to hosting national conferences. So it's going to be a really exciting opportunity for us. We actually have been in the design phase for the past year because right now it's dungeon. There's no windows. It's giant pillars. It's not a very inviting area. And when you're talking about research and training kids don't want to be in a dungeon. They need windows and light and sunshine for stimulation. So we're rescoping the entire area for it to really be able to serve its purpose for what we're trying to do with this space. So we're hoping to have, a big unveil by the end of the year. But this, we were able to get some money through it from the Great Hall completion phase that went through City Council. So we're able to allocate some funds from that completion phase into what we call a SIA. So as we talk about equity, as I mentioned, is a huge component of what we're looking at for the airport. So the federal government came through with Executive Order 13985. And so what that did is that it really made us focus on making sure that we're representing underserved communities and getting them opportunities. So this actually was one of the components that, was stemmed our creativity to say, what can we do to really make sure we're serving underserved communities? What can we do to expand our workforce opportunities for kids? And so this was something that went into effect that kind of stirred the pot for us to be creative. And I will note, as we're talking about all of this, we have programming for kids that are, talking about youth programming, it's critical for us. It's the future of our workforce. We have programming for, all the way from young elementary school kids to college, to apprenticeships, to mentorships, and everything in between. So it's a really important component for us for these kids. And then also integrating even employees. So we have, middle manager employee. How do you get from one, the manager spot to the director to executive, right? So we're making sure that we can provide that training, and then also executive level leadership. We don't want our own leaders to get rusty, so how can we make sure that we're training them and making sure that they have the proper leadership skills to train their people? Justice 40, another big component of it. So it's an administration commitment to increase minority contracting from the federal benefits by 40%. So again, a lot of this is coming from, partnerships with the federal government for us to be able to implement different minority contracting and opportunities for small businesses and minorities to get involved. Equity and Infrastructure Project, you'll hear it as the EIP. So this was a pledge led by Phil that Den was one of the first five movers that signed onto this, where we're going to increase our minority contracting by 2025 by 40%. So that's a really big commitment. So our teams have been really working hard to make sure that we are reaching out, we're providing the education, we're providing the resources to different minority groups to be able to get involved. Justice 40 is integrated into the EIP Pledge, and so this kind of goes through it. So we, as I said, we're one of the first five, and it was really critical when we were looking at this pledge to get all the different modes of transportation. So you have DEN, which is of course the airport. We have the Chicago Transit Authority wanting to get a different mode. The Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, the Water District, which is the largest water district in the United States, and then the Port of Long Beach. So with all of these different modes, we took a pledge where we're going to increase our minority contracting, and we've seen some pretty significant success thus far with our pledge moving forward. And it's something that, we're not done tomorrow, we're not going to be done in a year, it's a continuous thing. And even after, we say the pledge is going to, by 2025, we're going to do this, it's going to be something we continue to do. So this is actually the slide I was looking for. So here is, the baseline of our current actions and initiatives. By 2025, we will work to expand all of our underserved and underutilized businesses. So think about it from a Commerce City perspective. If you have businesses that are interested or that you might think would be a good fit to, have an operation at the airport, work on or respond to an RFP, be a concessionaire, we have what's called a Commerce Hub, and their sole purpose is to be the entryway for businesses to work at DEN. So we want to spread the wealth. We want monies to go to Commerce City, to local businesses, to bid on these contracts and to have the knowledge so that they can work at the airport too. So that's something, if you're interested or if you know businesses that could have an opportunity or interest in working at the airport, let me know, and then I can connect you with the hub and then give you the proper resources for you to be able to do that. So pillar two, growing our infrastructure. This is what you probably see the most in the news. So Great Hall project, of course, we're all pretty familiar with this. So this is phase one, and for those of you that haven't been in, this is our new ticketing check-in. This is the United portion. So we were able to complete this project on time at $25 million under budget when we took it in-house. It renovated all of these beautiful ticketing lobbies. So these are little kiosks where you can actually just go up, punch in your confirmation number, punch in your name, print out your own bag tag, put it on, and then drop it at these kind of like bag. So you just roll it up, drop it on, and then you're good to go. So it really streamlined the process. And the reason why we did this is because previously, 25, 30 years ago when we built it, there were no such thing as mobile phones where you could just have your ticket on your phone. So we were able to remove a lot of the ticketing space that was not necessary, and really be able to streamline it so that there can be a heavier throughput of passengers to be able to get faster to security. And this also, I will say, the pandemic impacted us pretty negatively in a lot of different ways, but one of the reasons for Great Hall Phase 1 and a little bit of Phase 2, we were actually able to accelerate our construction. So we were able to work at different hours, we were able to expand kind of the barriers when it came to the construction, because when it wasn't the pandemic, we had to be very thoughtful. We didn't want to interfere with the passenger experience, we don't want banging walls, we don't want big barricades. So that was one positive, as bad as that sounds, but it was one positive we were able to kind of take away from the pandemic to allow us to continue to grow. Phase 2, so this is what we're currently under right now, is Great Hall Phase 2. And so what this is doing is that it is moving the north security up to level 6. So right now, both north and south security is on level 5. What the Great Hall project is going to do is that it's going to move up the north and the south security to level 6. Now why? Why do you want to move it up? So the biggest component and biggest event that really changed the aviation industry was 9/11. So it really took us to take a step back and reimagine kind of what security looks like. So right now, if a bad person wanted to come in, the security that's currently on level 5 is very open. There's anybody, any stranger could come in and see that as a target. So what we're going to do is by Phase 2, we're going to bring it up to level 6, to where you have to be, it's a more secure area, where there's not as much as a threat when it comes to our security process. In addition, we're also working to increase our TSA lanes. So those are kind of, the ones where you go like this, and different integration technologies for, again, just a faster throughput to get passengers through to accommodate the growth. And then the completion phase. So this will be both north and south. You can see this is kind of level 5 where you come up from the train. Beautiful open space, more kind of a gathering area. So if you're waiting for a loved one to come in or waiting for a loved one to depart, you'll have the opportunity to kind of gather and be in that space together. So the next big project is our gate expansion. So this is a $1.5 billion project that's adding 39 new gates to the airport and increasing our capacity by 30%. So just take a moment and think about it. So when you're talking about 39 new gates, we are essentially adding a medium-sized airport to a large hub, which is pretty unheard of when it comes to the aviation industry. And it's because we were so well positioned for growth. We, unlike other airports, we sit on 52 square miles of land. We have the ability to grow. And that's something that other airports, let me tell you, are very jealous about. So our airport, or the way that the concourses are constructed, we can add to both the east and the west sides. Other airports are very land restricted to where if they get 1 or 2 gates, they're pretty happy. So this is a really significant project. In addition, as we're talking about gates, I also just want to say, and this is something that the airlines wanted. We actually were able to lease up all of the gates before they even opened. And so it was a really great opportunity for us to work with them. They're excited to have it. It's a beautiful space. If you ever get the opportunity to travel and have a little bit of time, I encourage you to walk down to the space. It honestly feels like you're walking into a different airport. You can literally see kind of where the new area is and previous. But it's really exciting. We've already opened most of them, and so A West and B East will be the ones that are going to be the ones to complete. And so as a reminder, kind of like the A concourse is more Frontier, International, some of our smaller airlines. Concourse B is primarily United, and then Concourse C is primarily Southwest. Train to the gates. All right, so this is also another fun hot topic that everybody likes to talk about. So train to the gates is candidly one of the most limiting factors of our growth, because there's only one train. If the train breaks down, then you have no way to get to concourses B and C. You can get to A from the bridge, but sorry, United and Southwest, you can't get there. So that's a huge problem for us. That's something we definitely need to evaluate. So we're getting 26 new train cars next year, and then we're replacing a lot of the old ones that, just by its life cycle, not because they're damaged, but it's just, asset management life cycle. So we're replacing those, and then also adding 10 new train cars to, again, just have a constant flow, so it's not a 2-minute wait, it's more like a 45-second. We did actually release an RFP out to the general public saying, hey, general public and friends, what are your ideas? How can we get people, what are other alternatives that we can look at to get people from the terminal to B and C? So we, I think it was we received about 18 RFPs, RFP responses. So we were kind of going through those, seeing, what's feasible. Some of them, when you think about it, it's far, right? I mean, you're talking miles and miles, and people were like, oh, just let them, walk on the concourse, or walk on the tarmac and walk between the areas, and it's like, it's very difficult. They, like Atlanta, I think, has a moving walkway. It's very difficult for us to do that because we live in Colorado. We have snow, and we have 4 different seasons of weather that are unpredictable. So it's, those are some of the things. I love the idea, and it's great to kind of have a conversation, but what is something that we're going to be able to keep our passengers safe, and are people going to want to walk up? Because I'm not. If I'm traveling, I already don't want to walk that far, but I don't want to walk 7 miles to my gate. All right, pillar 3, maintaining what we have. So again, it's really critical for us to maintain the airport. We have a beautiful facility that has served us well. Let's make sure that we keep it. So we currently sit on about 70 million square feet of space. That's all space we have to take care of. We're adding 1.2 million square feet, part of the gate expansion, which again is pretty incredible when you're talking about it. We added about 32,000 square feet within the terminal through the Great Hall project, kind of on the level 6 barrier, where it will curve out now where the ticketing for Southwest and United are. We currently have 6 runways, 5 that are 12,000 feet, and then 1 that is 16,000 feet that was built in 2006, I want to say. Don't quote me on that, but it's around that time frame. It is the longest runway in North America, so 16,000 is we really needed that for our air winds and for safety and for weather, so it's a really great opportunity for us to have this. We are master planned for 12. So we are currently right now only at 50% of what our runway capacity could be. Our master plan includes 12, it includes additional concourses. We're not evaluating concourses at this point just because we already added gates, but 50 years down the line, you never know, 100 years down the line, the airport could, essentially double in what its foot capacity is right now. We have 300 lanes of roadway that we also have to maintain, including Pena Boulevard, which is, the sole kind of area from I-70 all the way up to the airport. So those are all roads that we have to maintain, we have to plow, really something that we have to keep in mind. And it's interesting, when we talk about Pena Boulevard, Pena Boulevard is regulated by the FAA. It's not regulated by E470, CDOT, local jurisdictions, Denver, no, it's the FAA. So when we work with them, we have to be very careful of aeronautical versus non-aeronautical traffic utilizing Pena Boulevard, because it really determines how much monies we can spend on the maintenance and rehabilitation of Pena. And to that component, we're also an enterprise as an airport. So we're an enterprise. We don't use any tax money. We don't have any general fund monies. What we make goes back into the airport. So those come from rental car fees, from airport landings, from rental for concessionaires, all of those different components add into a bucket of money that is our enterprise for us to be able to spend. So it's a very interesting financial layout of the airport. It's very different than what people are normally used to, or even what they're perceived to the airport. Parking, of course, that's always a big component of it. We are looking at, EV charging. How can we get that at the airport? It's something that's pretty critical for everybody. And it's very interesting also when you look at EV, because if I'm going on a trip and I'm gone for 7 days and I'm parked that means for 7 days, nobody else can use that EV charging. So how can we make sure we're able to have a flow of passengers and guests to be able to use the EV charging while you're still getting the benefit? So interesting concept that we're trying to evaluate right now. And then our conveyances. So there's nothing more annoying, and I hear you, nothing more annoying when you're walking and the walking elevator is broken, or the escalator is broken, or the elevator is broken, and you're sitting there having to re-navigate the airport. I get it. It frustrates me when I work there all the time, and it frustrates me even more when I'm a passenger. So that's why, it's really critical for us to have asset management for our own conveyances so that we don't have an interference with passengers that are going through the airport. And then restrooms, of course. They were saying one of the first things that people do when they go to the airport is use the restroom. First things. Before they go to ticketing, before they go anywhere, they go to the restroom. So it's one of those things, everybody's like, oh, a restroom, it's nice, it's needed, but it's like, no, when you're talking about an airport, it's actually a necessity. So we want to make sure that those spaces are going to be able to be used by guests, in addition to, we have pet relief stations. We also want to make sure we have changing stations, breastfeeding stations, all of those needs for our guests that are coming into the airport. So pillar 4, expanding our global connections. So this is kind of our international and global connections now. So you can see we go to South America, we go to Canada, we go to Asia, we go to Europe. One of the biggest areas you'll see, we have nothing in Africa. So one of our big initiatives that we're working on right now is opening up a flight to Africa. It's a pretty rigorous and long process. There's a lot of market research, a lot of connecting with kind of boots on the ground, determining what cities are going to be the most applicable, making sure that there would be enough market demand to be able to serve the flights, timing of it. So that's something we embarked on about a year ago for us to kind of start the analysis of it. So we've had conversations with Ethiopia, the best area for us to explore. So that's really exciting. The mayor also put together an Africa Air Service Committee. And so it's about a group of 25 different leaders that have Africa connections for us to be able to use them and say, hey, as steering committee, help us figure out what is going to be the best way. What are your ideas? How can we further this initiative? So commercial land opportunities. As I mentioned, we sit on about 34,000 acres of land. So all of this light gray area that you see here, all of that is deemed as aeronautical land, right? So that's going to be, we have another runway here planned, we got a runway down here, 2 runways here, 1 runway east-west. So all of that is aeronautical and aeronautical purposes. All of this gray, this dark gray that's around, that is non-aviation land that's been deemed by the FAA. So that means that those are opportunities for us to be able to develop that land. So you might have seen, over here, this is where this is kind of where the west approach is, where there's the final approach with the restrooms and the gas station and that kind of area right before you get to Pena. We're examining a little bit west of that. This area is called West Approach. So we put that to market to say, what does this look like? How can we develop this land to serve aviation uses, right? Hotels. The Westin is one of the best producing airport, the Westin is one of the best producing hotels in Denver. And so we have a lot of convention space, we have a lot of conferences that come in. So how can we also build to support what we already have existing? So those are going to be types of things that come in. And one of the biggest things that I want to highlight is the fact that Commerce City is right next door to us. It is an opportunity for us to be able to partner and for us to be able to get businesses into the airport. It's one of the most easily accessible cities with Aurora to the airport. So how can we make sure that Commerce City residents have workforce opportunities? How can we make sure that we're giving Commerce City students the opportunity to learn about aviation? And then how can we make sure that we're really partnering with Commerce City for economic development as well? So what does this mean? What does all this mean? It's a lot of information, and I know I talk about, so I probably went through it pretty quickly. But it's like I said in the beginning, this is an opportunity for us to be able to partner when it comes to an increase in revenue. Revenue from the airport trickles down into communities, and that's what we want to do to support. economic development. When a conference comes in, a lot of the times, where's someplace to eat? Oh, tower, here we go, let's go eat somewhere. Let's go get a hotel somewhere, and what's the local business? How can I go get help? Whatever it might be. It's a positive for Commerce City since we're neighbors. Stronger economy, again, largest contributor to the state of Colorado. We're anticipating, that number, the 33 billion, might go up slightly, but we're not going to get that final report until the state comes out with it. Again, opportunities for businesses, jobs. We are hiring. Everybody at the airport is hiring. I'm not going to steal you away from your current businesses because that would be bad for the airport. But if you know anybody that is looking for a job or interested in just like a different career, we're hiring. All of our airline partners are hiring. Every concessionaire is hiring. It's really awesome if you want to get involved. And then, of course, just supporting all of you. So, with that is the end of my presentation, and I open for any questions, and thank you all for your time today.
What's the easiest way for a business that's interested in opening a branch at the airport to get information?
So if you send me your information or any business, so we have the best way that is accessible is the Commerce Hub. So if you Google Denver International Airport Commerce Hub, it will pop up with a website with information and contact info for you to be able to reach out to that kind of division directly, so that they can kind of give you guidance and information on, what is step one, right? That's always the question, like, what is step one? So they'll give you kind of the steps and help you through the process and get through any of your questions through that. And I want to note, when it comes to businesses, there's kind of the normal businesses, but then we also have ACDBEs, which is the Airport Concession Disadvantaged Business Enterprises. And so those are specific for like food and beverage operations. And so that's a different kind of certification. That's a different path you have to go through, because the FAA came out with it saying, hey, we want to make sure that we're being equitable to both kind of the shops and the food and beverage operations as well. Yeah.
Surprised last time we talk about trash. So, being the largest employer in Colorado and with all this growth, the state's made it very clear that they have very aggressive waste diversion goals. If any, has there been any talk about aligning with that, or is that?
Oh yeah, we sustainability is something huge for the airport. So we have one of the largest recycling programs, and I know you're going to ask this, but I don't know who we use. That'd be. Is it? Okay. I'm like, trash isn't something, it's important, and I know, but, so we have one of the most, the largest recycling. It's something that we're able to do, and then even when it comes to our concessionaires, when it comes to composting, right? So that's a huge component of it, because it's food waste. Food is something that we can use to serve all different types of people from communities, and so we partner, it's not Metrocary anymore, but we partner with a nonprofit for us to be able to give all of our foods from concessionaires to them to then distribute out to different communities to make sure that we're not just wasting food, and they're able to have that component. And then again, different composting opportunities for our concessionaires as well. Yeah, we have an entire sustainability team, so everywhere from food to fuel, there's something in line for us to be able to do that. So, yeah.
What kind of, I'm just thinking as I've been at the airport, what kind of recreational or leisure type spaces do you guys have at the airport?
Are you talking spas?
No, more so spaces for people to whether it's I'm thinking from a library's perspective or a rec center type perspective. Are there any vendors in the airport that offer those kind of services for people to pass their time as they're there?
We have kind of two answers to it. So one, we have larger spaces that are a little bit more, relaxation centered. So they're longer chairs, they're a little bit plushier. They're able, if folks have a layover, they can go and take a nap. So we have those on a lot of the mezzanines. I know B and C, I believe A has one as well. So that's an opportunity for where people can kind of go and relax. It's also a floor away from the gates, so it also provides a little bit of quiet, so where people can kind of think and provide themselves a little bit of calming before they go onto a flight. So that's something we try to do, and a lot of kind of the spaces that we're creating right now, even within our new gates, it's a lot more open concept. So it's a lot more open. It's not just rows and rows and chairs of trying to sit as many people as possible. We're very thoughtful in how we're setting it up to make it the most space so that people still feel comfortable, but it's a little bit more inviting so that if you do have a little bit more of a wait, you can go there and again, just kind of decompress a little bit, have your families with you, eat a burger, whatever it might be, eat a taco, for you to be able to do that. So that's kind of one approach. And then the other one, we do have some retailers that give like different massages. We had Express Spa that was in there for a little bit. There were only a couple locations, but we don't have like a rock climbing wall or anything like that, just from like a liability perspective as well.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think I was at another, I heard you put a similar presentation together once before with another group, and I remember walking away from that presentation thinking, what would it be like to have a library at the airport, or like something where people can engage with technology? Not you think library, you think mostly books, right? But there are so many other services that the library offers, such as access to technology, ability to fax, from copies, things like that. I just think there's so many people there passing time oftentimes. So I've just thought about that in the past.
Yeah, and that's an interesting concept. We do have like tattered cover, which is in the airport. So they kind of provide a different service in that kind of way. We had to, just because of the renovation, but we did have like FedEx. And so that was like a shipping service where people could go in if they have a package or if they needed something printed or if they needed something, mailed before they headed out on their journey, they could stop there and have that be like a one-stop shop. And we had it pre-security, so if they had, a box that they wanted to send home to mom and dad because they couldn't have their ski equipment or it was too heavy to bring it back,
Sure.
like they could just say, here you go, ship it out. But to your point, from a technology perspective, it would be an interesting concept, and I think it could be something from an RFP or something like that that could be integrated, or even from a current tenant at the airport as well.
Sure. Cool. Yeah, just curious.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. Yes.
Along those same lines, when he said that, I was thinking like a game room.
Wow.
Pool tables, pinball, even video games. Is there anything out there like that where somebody can go in and make a revenue source for the airport where they can hook up and do games, or if they have an account with a different subscribing service for TV or something, sit and watch their programs where you're making revenue for the airport while, and some people have a 2-hour layover and they want to catch up on their soap operas. They can sit up there and do that, and or play video games, or on each concourse as a revenue source, because I guarantee you it would make money.
Yeah.
If you can rent restaurant space and leisure space, like for people to calm down, you can also rent that kind of space for people to hype up.
Right. No, I think that's a great. Personally, I love it. I would totally go use that when I'm traveling. We do have, there are lounges within the airport, but some of them are pretty restricted, like United and Amex and all
Right.
of those. So it's not inclusive to all traveling public. But really, we're not the ones that create the space. We are dependent upon what the market tells us and gives us back from our RFP. So if there's a company out there like, I don't know, let's say Punch Bowl, right? If Punch Bowl came out and said, okay, Denver Airport, we want X amount of space to be able to do all of these things, to integrate a pool table and gaming stations and technology and do that, then we can go through the process to be able to have the panel and to review the proposal. But the airport's not, we're not gonna go out and tell the market what they want. It's kind of dependent upon what we hear from the market. So if you have an idea though, if you're telling me that you want to create a business and do a proposal, I'm all ears. I'm like, let me tell you how to get started, because I think it really is a great idea. It's something fun and different. Any other questions?
I have a question. So, with all the new people coming in, like to Denver or just visitors, is there a place for them to go to find like local businesses? Is there a resource place like that?
We have, so a lot of our market is actually like kind of like overlays. So about 60, we're anticipating about like 60% of being O&D, which is like origin and destination, and then the other component where like you're going to Denver or leaving from Denver. But we've actually kind of seen a flop or switch to where we're serving a lot of passengers that are just, you know, here for a layover. So we don't have like a small business like resource center or anything like that within the concourses. In outside, like in the terminal, if you're kind of departing, we do have some like touch screens and some information where people can say like, okay, we're going here, like how can we get there? And then we also have like agents, so they're wearing like the purple vest, they're our volunteers, and they are like, hey, you know, how do we get here? What's a good place to go? Then we're able to kind of assist them in that way.
How's your train doing? How's the train numbers on?
Train's going well. We're waiting for our new cars.
I mean, ones RTD.
Oh, that's a whole. I mean, it is really RTD. You know, is going through a fair and equity study. So a lot of what we're trying to do with RTD is kind of in conversations. But A-line is critical for us, right? It serves. It's still, even during COVID, was the only line that maintained its passengers because it was serving airport, both employees and passengers. So we were actually able to work with RTD to move the start time of the A-line back from 3:52 a.m. to 3:40 a.m. to serve the folks that work at 4 a.m. at the airport, right? We're nonstop. We never shut down. We're 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We never close. And so for people that were coming in at 4, the A-line didn't provide them enough time to be able to ride the train, get off, walk in, go through security, and then get to, you know, whatever concourse they were working on. So we were able to work with RTD to kind of push back that time to allow for a bigger window of employees, which, you know, we are really grateful for, because a lot of them are concessionaires. People that have to 4 a.m. flight want coffee, and those people are not sometimes the friendliest. So we want to make sure our employees aren't scrambling to get to their workstation to serve caffeine needing people. So that's something that's like, oh, if you're at the airport at 4 a.m., I'm like, and I'm one of those people that don't drink coffee. Like, this is me all the time. And so I'm like, okay, go get your coffee, that's fine. But I think it is, you know, RTD is a really critical component of the airport, just because we serve, I mean, we have 34,000 employees that need to get to the airport. So how are we going to get them there, and how are we going to make sure that it's a steady, it's reliable for them to be able to get there? Yeah.
So now you guys have campus in there. Are you guys open to having multiple financial institutions?
It's through the process. So I don't know if we're necessarily looking for a bank. I don't know if we're looking for like, you know, a GameStop. It's all about, we put it out to the market to say, here is an RFP. Here are, you know, for example, 16 different concessionaire spaces that we're looking at. You tell us what you think. And then we go through the process of evaluating it and going through the proposals and kind of that. But I mean, we're always open to hear ideas and to look at, you know, what the market is saying or what people want.
What's your failure rate on businesses in the airport? Because some of them obviously don't work, right?
Yeah, I actually have no idea. Tom, I've never been asked that before, but of course, I would expect nothing less from you. But I don't know. I'll look into that because I'm kind of curious too. A lot of our places and a lot of our, you know, tenants have been pretty successful throughout the years. So that's a good question. I'll look into that.
Let's thank Rachel.